Welcome to Black Girl Chats with myself, Umbali, and Tobile and Ngobile. So before we move forward into this week's episode, I think as a collective we'd really like to celebrate a very small victory with regards to the R. Kelly case. So he has been charged with 10 counts of sexual assault and child pornography. And we think for us this is definitely a really good moment to reflect on the conversation that we've been having and the impact that it's having in terms of unpacking the complexities of sexual assault, especially as a black girl. And with that being said, let's get right into it. Today's episode is going to be a little bit more interactive. So we're going to be sharing some of the survival strategies that we have developed as black women. Of course, these are not all of the survival strategies, but we're just wanting to share what we do in our day-to-day, in our everyday, when we're moving between spaces, some of the things that we deploy, some of the things that we carry in our bags, some of the mindsets that we carry. Yes, so Tomida, I think you can begin to share.
All right, so in my school backpack right here, I have my tampons. Also, do note that they're in like some very cute but like secret type of packaging. In fact, this packaging I got given to by one of my sort of elderly women, sort of, I don't know, guidance of sorts from church. She decided to give me this together with some lipstick, actually, which the lipstick is finished now. But I think for me this speaks to the kind of secrecy that we have towards menstruation. Which is another conversation altogether.
Yes.
But I also have this as a part of my sort of rape kit sort of scenario thing that we're dealing with today, as a way to sort of negotiate the fact that you're on your period, right? Because often we think of rape as something that comes out from sort of outwardly, invasive, but also strangers, right? Whereas it could also come from intimate partners.
Yeah.
And being on your period is one of the many strategies that women use to say, but I'm not about it. Like, I'm not on my period.
Can't happen.
Right, so this is what I have. And I've got some matches because I'm going to light your dick up. I won't spend too much time on that one. I've got a torchlight in here, courtesy of the Gender Equity Office. So this came with a pepper spray, right, which I couldn't find in the house. But also the assumption is that rape happens in the dark, right? So you're probably walking in the dark in the streets and you don't know where to be and whatever. So I've got a torchlight. And I've also got a pack of condoms, right? Because bitch gets horny, But also as in a more sad and maybe not as exciting way, to think about condoms and protection as a way of, even if you are going to penetrate me, at least penetrate me without leaving any sort of, STDs, HIV, pregnancy type of situations on me.
Yeah.
So this is what I have as my rape kit bag in my school bag. Right?
Yeah, it's quite interesting, right? Yeah.
So I don't know if you'd like to maybe take it from there.
Yes. So this is what I have in my lovely red bag. I don't have many items, but I think my items speak to me having had the experience of having to walk between campus and to the taxi rank. But then also when I got a car, it's about how do you navigate that situation, especially when you're driving at night. So the first item I'm going to bring up is my cap. Guys, this is my staple cap. It doesn't go anywhere. It is always with me, especially in my car. And what I do with this is that if I'm driving by myself at night, I will literally take my wig off, guys. Ngifake my cap. And then I drive, because what that does is that when you're driving, right, because your people can see right through your car windows, and if you have a weave and like earrings and things like that, you can often pick up that this must be a woman, and that makes you more vulnerable and susceptible to being hijacked and then after that to being raped and to being violated in various ways. So me wearing a cap sort of creates that illusion that it might be a man. And taking off my wig and wearing the cap, that there might be a man in the car. So that makes me feel slightly safe, especially when I'm driving by myself at night. Okay, and then, guys, Kinali, what I thought of pepper spray. So I thought this was pepper spray, né? And then upon further inspection, I realized, because I bought this at some random like Chinese shop, it was like 15 rand, and I've never owned pepper spray in my life, and because it was so cheap and it was there, I was like, this might be good for me. But this I recognize is actually tear gas, right? But it gets the job done, especially for those people that like taking chances. So I'm going to tell you a very, very short story about this. I was driving from campus, it was after class or after work, I can't remember anyway, but I was driving from Braamfontein and I was about to connect to the M1 South Freeway to go home. It was during the day, it was very, very hot. Sometime last year, it was incredibly hot. So I had rolled down my windows about this much because I also understood that you can't just be driving and creating a Beyonce effect with your hair, girl. Like, hey, you will get snatched, a whole lot of things will happen to you. So my windows rolled down like this much. So I get by the robot and the robot is red, so I stop. As I'm like waiting for the robot to open so I can, proceed with the route, some like homeless man just comes by my window. And usually, like, I think if you've been in Braam and many other places, you have a lot of homeless people just coming up to you, asking you for some money, some food, even some garbage, or just to clean your windows or whatever. So I'm thinking they shouldn't be a threat. Little did I know. So, guy, he says to me, give me your phone. So I'm trying to roll my window up. As I'm trying to roll my window up, he's literally holding it down. And that's when I noticed that this person's actually out here to just like do the most. So in that moment, because my phone is always like there's a little like part by the gearbox there. And then he's like, give me your phone. And I'm just like, no. And then he reaches into like a jacket and it looks like he's about to pull out a gun. So in my mind, I'm thinking, what are the chances this guy has a real gun? Guys, it's bad. Maybe I'm naive, but I'm also just like, I'm not giving you my hard-earned stuff. Like, I'm not doing it. So then I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it to you. So because mine, now newly I've developed that it's tear gas, it's always like in the side compartment of my car, I'm keeping him distracted by, like I'm acting like I'm actually giving him the phone. I'm also out here. I'm like, oh, this person. And then I take this out. So this wasn't in its box. It was just like this by itself. I take it out and I sprayed him with my tear gas, guys. He got the shock of his life. I rolled my window up and I drove off. So like it's times like that where sometimes you recognize like having these little things can really, save your life. But yeah, those are my survival strategies on the day to day.
Okay. So I've got my phone. That's like literally the only thing I have in my bag. And then I also have my mind. So I use public transport to commute from home to school, right? And sometimes obviously I need to play out different scenarios in my mind and make calculated decisions, right? So for instance, if I choose to stay at school a bit longer, then I need to think, am I taking a taxi from school to Bree and then Bree home, or am I taking a Taxify or an Uber? So basically, like, I just think of all these different situations and then I weigh my options, and whichever option sounds safest, then that's what I do, right? Also just concerning clothing or things like that, in the morning I just feel like if I'm very certain that I'll be back home at 2 p.m, then I know that actually I want to wear like a mini skirt or I want to wear shorts. But if I'm very certain that I have other commitments and I'll probably be back at home like past 6 p.m, then I'm not trying to take chances, right? Then again, I will wear a longer skirt or whatever the case might be. So all of these are like, you just try and think about your movements, you think about your commitments, you think about the day you're about to have, and then you make decisions based on that, right? So with my phone, if I am going to request a Taxify or Uber, what I do is, let me just show you guys a screen grab. So here there's a screen grab where obviously you request the driver, and then it shows the driver's name and the car he drives and the number plates. I screen grab it and I send it to my mom, to my friends, and I tell them I'm about to enter this car. So although that is an alternative, for me it's a safe alternative, I'm not sure because I could be raped in the car. So people need to know, should anything happen, who are we looking for, what's his name, what's his car brand, his number plates. So that's what I do. I screen grab and I send it to everyone, and people need to know that should anything go missing, we know who the target is. So that's what I do. And really talks about how every single day women, and in particular women who travel by public transports, how we just like play out these different scenarios in our minds, and then we take it from there, because we are not trying to play with these perpetrators. And it doesn't always work out, but I mean, the point is you police yourself, you police your movement, you police what you want to wear, and so forth.
Melly, please share your story that you shared off air.
Oh, yes. Right. So, something else that I used to do when I was still commuting by way of taxi. So, I used to stay in res in my undergrad. And if I had to go home, if my mother or anyone else in my family couldn't pick me up, I had to take a taxi home to the East End. So, what I would do is that I would pack my bags and leave them in my room in res, take a bus to campus, go about my daily activities, go to class, go to tutorial, collect a course pack, whatever. But for me, I was very cognizant of what I was wearing. So on a really hot day, typically as a woman, you'd wear a pair of shorts or a dress or a skirt or whatever that makes you feel like it's, that you're cooling down. But for me, when I had to travel home by taxi, I was very conscious of that. So I'd come on campus, having packed my bags. I don't actually take my bags with me to campus. And then after everything that I've had to do on campus, I had to go back to res. And when I get to res, I change. And I'd wear something like a tracksuit or pants and a cap or whatever, take my bags and then go to the taxi rank. And that for me, now in retrospect, was, I think, again, it's playing on that rape myth that it actually does matter what you're wearing, but it doesn't. I was still susceptible to being raped in that moment, but it did make me feel safe, that I was covered up, so to speak, that I wasn't showing any parts of my body, and in fact that I felt invisible, that no one would notice me. That was the most important thing. No one is going to notice a first, second year girl wearing a tracksuit and a cap, just walking and doing her own thing. So that was something that I used to do. But also just adding on to what you were mentioning with Taxify and Uber. Another thing is, I think what's very important is that Taxify and Uber has developed a new thing, this part of the app, I don't know what to call it, where you can actually also share the trip. So as you are being driven from one point to another, the person that you're sharing the trip with can actually monitor where the Taxify is going, what routes they're taking. So in the event that something weird happens and you've notified me, like for example, if Nobile tells me she's leaving Braamfontein and she's going to Soweto, I know that as I'm watching the trip, as she's traveling, that if it, for example, ends up in Hillbrow or Newtown, whatever, that there must be something up. And I try to reach her, and if I can't reach her, then I know that it must be cause for concern. So I think you're all encouraged, because we know Taxify and Uber is something that we're all using nowadays. Definitely share your trip with someone that can look, follow the trip and can follow through with the routes that you're taking, and also to make sure that you get to where you're supposed to be safely. With that being said, I think it's safe to conclude from us that what Biko says, he says that black man, you're on your own. But in our case, black woman, you're on your own. And then that leads us to think about, where are the black women? If we are developing these strategies, right, and these survival kits, and what Tomila just termed as the rape kit, I then wonder, why is it so difficult for you to clutch onto another black woman's arm when you're feeling unsafe, right? And just to say to her, I'm actually feeling unsafe because this person is looking at me this way, or this and this just happened, whatever. What makes that sense of solidarity so difficult as a survival mechanism?
And just to take from you, Mandy, I think I'd like to share a story. So in my probably second or third year of varsity, so obviously going out to nightclubs is a part of the culture of being in university. So you go out quite often, right? And I remember this one time, actually even recalling it is very emotional, but I'll go on, because so we go out to a frequent nightclub in Bram, and obviously there's a potential, I don't even want to call him a suitor, but like this guy is obviously like eyeing me and whatnot. So I'm with my friends, right? And they're like, hey, Chomi, he'll buy us drinks, right? So obviously that's always like the opening of negotiation, right? Or even conversation, I guess. So I know this guy, obviously, outside of the space. So it's not like it's the first time I'm interacting with this person. But also, that is no reason for anything else, right? So, okay, out of sort of having a sort of a communal understanding, it's okay, we know each other and whatnot. It's okay, Shark gets me a few drinks. I'm like, okay, I'm with my girls and whatever. He's like, okay, cool, now get your drinks for your girls. Sharp, we're sitting together, we're having drinks, whatever, it's nice. And he isn't from Joburg, actually. He's from a different university, like UKZN or something. And he was here for some conference, seminar type of thing. Because you know these conferences happen forever and whatnot. So he's like, he's booked a room in some hotel. And I'm like, okay, you booked a room for yourself too, you don't live around here. So, and he's like, so the night obviously progresses, and the nightclub's obviously about to like close in like an hour or two. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go over to like my friend's place. Yeah, I'm revealing people's names. But so we go to my I'm like, okay, look, I'm gonna go sleep over at my friend's place. And he's like, no, but I've booked a room for us. And I'm like, but I don't want to go. And he's like, I've spent money on you. And I'm like, but that was out of your choice. Exactly. Like, you wanted to, I didn't like coerce you in any way to do it. And he's like, so now he's like all grumpy and shit. Because like now you're trying to also negotiate like masculinity with your now, like, is my safety a priority? Like, all those things. So like, my mind is like literally everywhere on top of being intoxicated, right? So like, there's a lot of things happening in my head. So here I am looking for my friends. Where are my friends? Where are my friends, guys? Like, but obviously, like, this is one of many, maybe not many situations, but maybe few, right, in the many that occur whereby you never have, you know, a sense of refuge. But obviously, like, end of story is I find a place of refuge, right? But often that doesn't happen. So what do we do when a place of refuge doesn't occur? Whereby you've been in a situation where you're like, I'm out here with my friends, I'm out here with black women who are also in a position of precarity as I am in, right? But also who are so willingly able to put me in a further place of precariousness whereby it's for a beer, right? So I'm trying to think of the ways in which how do we conceptualize sisterhood? How do we conceptualize solidarity in those kinds of situations, right? To what extent do we say, oh no, but why were you going out at night at that time? And quite briefly, this also reminds me of a post that I saw that just this week, which also just brought me to tears, to be like, this woman is sort of has a thread on Facebook, right, about where she's saying that I'm there for women who we had to serve on a tray because they were there to visit my uncle. Right? We had to serve them on a tray in the back room. We had to not care about them because no, by your favor. We had to not care about them because they're already failing in school. Like, where is our solidarity for those kinds of black women who their understanding of love is forcefulness, is sort of a forceful sense of power and a forceful sense of, you know, I don't know, like, empower, like, sort of entrenching yourself in, like, putting your claws into someone as a sense of understanding what love is. For an entire weekend, or weekends, or a week, or whatever.
So I'm thinking about how solidarity and sisterhood, especially among black women, black girls, black women, is so fragile, precisely because patriarchy is not necessarily masculine. Right? That's very important. So going back to, I think it was in episode 1 or episode 2, we were speaking about what patriarchy is, what masculinity is, what femininity is, when we were unpacking those. If you haven't seen it, please go back to our episodes.
Binge watch.
Yes, binge watch so you can, follow through with some of these ideas. But the idea is that patriarchy is not necessarily a person but a system. And women can also be part and parcel of reproducing that system, which then makes it possible for solidarity or notions of sisterhood to be so fragile and very fractured. Because in that community of black women, irrespective of the fact that we may have very similar experiences with being violated by other people because we are black women, it becomes difficult to reconcile with how we think about that experience and how we deal with that experience. Precisely because I don't necessarily subscribe to this term, but women that are patriarchal in nature and also uphold patriarchal values have been termed phallic women or patriarchal princesses, right? So those are the women that will insist that there's no way that you could have been raped if this person was buying you alcohol throughout the night and you were speaking with him and you were dancing with him, so on and so forth. And so when we are dealing with solidarity and sisterhood, it's very important for us to then unlearn all the patriarchal principles that have been embedded in us, that we've been socialized with, that we've been socialized to continue to maintain, even when we have our own children, in order to make solidarity possible and in order to make solidarity something that is healthy among black women. Yes, I think, guys, this thing is intense, because I sometimes think about how I become a patriarchal princess myself, right? And being a feminist is not necessarily you being devoid of patriarchy. That's not what it is. You being a feminist is being able to recognize what patriarchy looks like and to recognize how you still operate within that system and how you want to unlearn and do better. So you move away from that system in order for you to be able to say, you know what, I want to believe Tobile if this happened to. I want to believe in Robile. I want to believe all of those little black girls that have been implicated and have been put in child pornography by R. Kelly, that have been molested by R. Kelly. I choose to believe them, given the fact that I understand what patriarchy has done to me as a child. I understand what it continues to do to me in my day-to-day experiences and even in my relationships with other women and even other men. So solidarity is, it's something that is very complex, but I also think at the heart of it, when you're able to recognize how patriarchy is embedded in you, you are able to also exercise empathy. I think it's very important that when we're thinking about how to stand with another black woman, you need to be able to then recognize the fact that they may not necessarily think the way that you think about how we should be imagining a safe space for black girls. So how do we become empathetic but not remain uncritical of, for example, older black women, right? Older generations of black feminists. How do we come to make sense of the fact that, you know what, mhlambe umamami or antwami or whoever or ugogo doesn't believe me, but I will believe it because she lives in a very particular time space and she existed in a very particular time space. So you become empathetic, by making sense of how they've been conditioned, and then but you still need to be critical. Like being empathetic is not just, oh no, oh no, man, no, it's not okay. It's not okay for us just to say, because she's older, she would not think or see things the way that I see them. Yours is just to say, because she's older, I can recognize how this particular idea is something that she finds difficult to let go of. Right? And again, it speaks to last week's episode about mourning. Because you have to mourn that idea, no matter how violent it is. Because mourning is being able to say, I want to savor that attachment. Because we do become attached to very violent and vile ideas. The issue with solidarity is that all the difficulties with having a community of black women that stands in solidarity with each other is precisely because we find it difficult, right, to detach from those violent ideas because they are so familiar. When patriarchy is the only fabric that you know of from growing up, it becomes difficult to say, I don't want that for myself, I don't want that for my children, because that becomes a risk, right? You put yourself in a position of danger because you're going to be read as that killjoy. You know, that killjoy. I know I suppose no clever, you know, I suppose no pooza, I suppose man, you know, we can't even talk to those girls or what that way was. They don't, you know what I'm saying? Because you yourself, you don't want to stand for that, and because you don't want to stand for it, you're detaching yourself from that idea. And in detaching yourself, you're saying, I am mourning that idea, but I want to, when I mourn it, to have people that are mourning that attachment with me. And that's what it means to stand in solidarity, to make that move towards detaching yourself from very violent ideas, violent practices of patriarchy, violent practices of accountability, and then saying that now that I'm not part of that thinking space anymore, I need people that are in the same community that don't want to be part of that space.
But I have a question.
Yes.
So what happens if granted you detach yourself from that space, right, and you want to enter into a safe space where you feel like you belong, right? But betrayal also happens in that very same space. And I think for me, like that is a different conversation altogether, right? Because then we can't start. I just think this is so complex. I don't even know where to start, right? Because I also have other questions. But I want to start from a place where we can't romanticize certain spaces all the time. So we can't romanticize a feminist space or a queer space, right? Because then you also need to recognize exactly what you said, that patriarchy is a system, and that those very violent ways can also be acted out in these safe spaces. And we've seen this, right? And I think it becomes even more painful because you had expectations that this space is supposed to hold you, and it's doing the contrary, it's breaking you, right? So how then do we work through the nuances of solidarity in such spaces? But before we get there, or maybe we shouldn't address that now.
Go on.
I think for me, people don't know an alternative to patriarchy, and for me then it becomes problematic to say to me, and it's like now I'm sort of like trying to play advocacy level, just also trying to like think through the challenges between generations, right? So for instance, if my mother or my grandmother, who comes from a different generation, says to me, but what is the alternative to patriarchy? Patriarchy is all that I know. And here you are saying, detach yourself from this violent system. Where do I go to? What is this new way of life that you're offering? And now I'm there trying to think through it, and I don't have the answers, right? Because sometimes, and maybe it's risky for me to say this, but sometimes we internalize violence because it's all that we know. And it becomes normalized.
It's familiar.
Exactly, and it becomes normalized. So when you come there and say, actually, I learned what has become a norm, let's see what must happen, or like, what exactly are you saying? What are you proposing?
Yeah. You know, Novina, what you're saying makes me think about what also Mbali just said, right? About how being a feminist or adhering to feminist ideology doesn't necessarily exempt you from being a patriarchal princess. And I'm coming from a position where during the FMF movement, I was actually termed a patriarchal princess, right? For various reasons, right? I mean, of course, like, we obviously can't bring the people in who had called me a patriarchal princess to ask as to why they had said that. But also doing a quest of introspection to sort of question the ways in which I have navigated around masculinity as a way, right? So I would call not necessarily call myself a particular thing, because I'm also very wary of tags, right? Because also tagging yourself doesn't necessarily mean that you holistically comply to what the tag sort of prescribes to. Right, so I'm very wary of prescriptions. However, I know that as an individual, as Utobile, I have a way of navigating around masculinities that maybe other women may not be able to, right? Coming from a particular background, coming from a township, coming from a particular township, coming from a particular way of navigating masculinity, I have a particular nuance in terms of navigating a masculinity, even outside of the spaces of which I come from, right? However, given that, right, I also have sort of questions about how we experience and engage solidarity, particularly because we don't know what is the alternative, given that we've only experienced a particular kind of threat of, existence, right? So I'd like to sort of think about what are the things that make us not want to interrogate? What are the comfortabilities, right? Because also it's a question of comfortability, because the same comfort that you experience within a patriarchal system is also the same comfort that you'll experience in a supposedly safe space.
Supposedly. And
right? Okay. So these are the things that I'm thinking through to say the spaces that in which I was termed a patriarchal princess were the spaces that I thought were safe spaces, supposedly black, protected spaces. Whereas in the same time, while I'm also interrogating why I'm being called a patriarchal princess, are the spaces in which are also supposedly safe, but are queer and whatnot, like queer and sort of anti-patriarchal, but still black spaces, but are also sort of embedded in their own sort of nuances and contradictions, right? So basically my summary point is that our life is completely filled with contradictions, right? And it is no one's fault that you will be faced in a position whereby you will be in a space where you're like, okay, the things that I'm doing probably don't make sense. Like 1 plus 1 doesn't add up to 2, but whatever, right? However, the point that I'm trying to drive home is that you need to constantly be in a position where you're doing self-introspection. I think for me, that is the point that I'm trying to drive home. Wherever you are, always do introspection work.
Right. And with that being said, so this is the season finale. It is the season finale of Black Girl Chats. From us, I just think we'd really like to thank you for your continuous support. We will be back with a different season, with a different topic, something a bit more lighthearted, something a bit more fun, but still as engaging, I think. Please continue to engage us, to retweet on Twitter, to share with others, and to continue the conversation even further.
Of course.
So I don't know if you, Nobile and Tobile, would like to close off with anything in particular? Any final thoughts?
I just have logistical things. On Twitter, we're at BGirlChats, and on Gmail at BlackGirlChats if you'd like to email us if you have consultations, and we'll send invoices.
Definitely. So we are definitely enthusiastic about having facilitation workshops. We've actually started that. So if you, your company, a school that you know, or even just any community, your church, whichever environment it is interested in having anti-rape culture dialogues and developing a skill set, please do not hesitate to contact us, and we'll be happy to invoice you and to be there.
Great. I don't have much to say except I am really grateful for this conversation. I think we are doing really important work. The content has been triggering, I'm not gonna lie. But we are thinking through these complexities. These are our experiences as Black women. And I'm just really happy that we are able to reach as many of you out there. We are always willing to have these conversations, obviously, because, like I said, we do feel that these are the conversations we should have. So I'm looking forward to your constructive criticism. Hope you guys will just reflect on all 4 episodes like we will do. I will binge watch and I will be very critical of each and every episode. And that's all I want to say. So from Kabile, Malia to Kabile, we'll catch you guys in the next season.